Joining me now from El Salvador on the ground to discuss is Peter McCormack, host of What Bitcoin Did, the podcast. Welcome to the show, Peter. So you're in El Salvador. Give me a sense of the mood, the atmosphere in the country right now.
Hi, Christine. Good to see you again. I was sat in the same seat last time we spoke. Yes, it's mixed, very, very mixed. There is people are very positive about what's happening here in El Salvador with Bitcoin, but there is also some dissenting voices. So it's quite a mixed picture. There is the opposition who's very anti-Bitcoin, but really they're anti-Bukele. My belief is if Bukele had banned Bitcoin in the country, they would be protesting to have it legal. But mainly their protests are around some of his recent decisions with regard to, say, the Supreme Court and his ability to run a second term, which is essentially a change to what's in the Constitution. So there is that group. It is a small group. I've been to a couple of the protests, and we're talking hundreds of people. Then you've got the pro-Bukele people who are very positive about this, are very positive about Bitcoin. You've got the Bitcoin people who are very positive about this. And then in the middle, there's this kind of very large mixed group who have a range of views, but mainly are saying, look, we're not anti-Bitcoin. We're just anti having Bitcoin forced on us. And some people saying that they just require more education. So I've been out to the markets, I've been to the malls, I've been trying to understand who's going to be accepting Bitcoin. Now down in the markets, it's almost everybody's saying, no, we don't understand it, we don't know anything about it. No, but that's fine. That's what you would expect.
Well, we actually have some photos that posted on Twitter from Gladys Arden, I believe. Here's some photos of you. So maybe you can explain what's happening here, what you've been seeing in the markets.
So this is a traditional El Salvador market where people are trading, buying fruit and veg and fish and meats. What you find in most cities, pretty much every single person I spoke to here, just their main points is like, we just don't understand this. We've been provided no education. But I also took a visit to the mall, went to some of the big chains and spoke to the store managers. And all these people were very positive, said, look, we're ready. We understand the law. We will be ready to accept Bitcoin. And so what I think is going to happen here is I think it's kind of a little bit of carrot and stick. The stick is the law for the big retailers, the chains, the Starbucks, your McDonald's, who just want to follow the law, and they've all essentially implemented it today. And then I think it's a little bit carrot for all the population and also the people in the markets and the street vendors, whereby they can download the Chivo app, receive their $30 of Bitcoin, and they can get an understanding of it. There is some ideas around that the president will be, or let's say the government will be penalizing those people who don't follow the law. When I met with him and spoke with him, he said that's not true. He's going to give people time. So it's a very mixed picture. I think it's mainly positive, but I think whatever your bias is, you can easily be dragged to a different side of the story.
Yeah. So nearly 70% of Salvadorans surveyed by the Central American University in a poll released last week either disagreed or strongly disagreed with using Bitcoin as legal tender, though about 90% also did not have a clear understanding of Bitcoin. So where is that sentiment coming from? And would you say that's pretty accurate? And what is going to be done to, educate people and get them to be more comfortable with Bitcoin?
I mean, look, I think there's some PTSD from when the country dollarized from the colon. I think it was about 20 years ago. So I think there's some PTSD about this and some nervousness. El Salvador has a history of presidents who have and administrations which have stolen from the people and have been corrupt. And whatever you think of Bukele, he's very much focused on economic policy, which opens up new economic freedoms and opportunity for the country. But Bitcoin's a confusing thing, and we see it when the mainstream media reports on it. They usually talk a load of nonsense, talk about spreading the FUD. So I think if you're very new to Bitcoin and you're trying to understand it and you think the government's bringing this law into force, perhaps in your research you've read things that have made you nervous. You haven't had the time to really kind of understand what it is. And if you're distrusting a government, you're going to be perhaps distrusting of a new currency as you fear that maybe the currency you hold will become devalued. I think that's natural. I think over time, as people come to understand Bitcoin, they won't see it as the big scary beast that they think it might be and see it as an opportunity for them. But I would also, on those polls, want to see the questions and see how it's worded. Sometimes those questions can lead people to give you a certain kind of a response. But I think that's only natural. it's very easy to focus on the negative, but there's lots of positives that can be focused on here as well.
And Peter, you mentioned you've been talking to President Bukele. What is in his mind right now? What's his line of thinking?
Oh, I haven't spoken to him yet on this trip. I'm hopefully meeting with him tomorrow because I've got a lot of questions I want to ask him. I have questions with regards to governance and Bitcoin and some important questions.
Sure.
So hopefully I'll get a chance to sit down with him tomorrow and talk about it. But I was referring back to when I spoke to him last time,
Right.
and he said that there wouldn't be penalties for people who don't adopt Bitcoin as acceptance on day one. And yeah, I haven't heard of anyone being arrested yet for not accepting Bitcoin, and I don't expect to hear about that.
You know, the Chivo wallet is a government-run. Some criticize it for government-run wallets. Some criticize it for being centralized dollar accounts. I wonder what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, look, it's a good question. The idea of having a custodial wallet versus a non-custodial wallet. In an ideal world, everybody would use a non-custodial wallet. But there's a few things we have to think about, like in practical terms. The speed of turnaround on this project and delivering the wallet was done in weeks. And essentially speaking, it's almost like a government Cash App wallet, whereby you have dollars and Bitcoin held custodially. And most people are happy with Cash App in the US. I think the main difference is Cash App is privately run, whereas this is a government-run wallet. But there is the ability to move Bitcoin off the wallet. There is some confusion around this. Some people said it's not possible. Some people said it is possible once it's moved, like it's made one hop. So once you've spent it, then that can be taken out of the wallet. And I think over time, people will start to look at other wallets and other options that they can use here, and that'll become part of the education. I think ideally, the Chivo wallet would be moved into a private company to be managed, because I think of it as a private company, it has that separation between the data and the government. There's some fears around centralization, but also centralization of the data where people are making purchases through the app.
Along those lines, Peter, you know, the presidential legal advisor, Javier Argueto, confirmed that it will be mandatory to have an electronic wallet to receive payments in Bitcoin. Do you agree with this hardline adoption?
Look, in an ideal world, all forms of Bitcoin usage would be voluntary, with you able to use any app you want. Forcing people to use specific apps, I think it comes with complications. I think if, like I say, in an ideal world, if the wallets were privately run and they were separated between the government and the separation between the government and the people, that I think that would be like a preferable situation. But this was a fast project. This project was turned around in a matter of weeks. So I think it's unsurprising, but if I was talking to the president, I would be asking if they would consider.
It was a monumental task myself, Peter. And I noticed that you had tweeted, so many people want Nayib Bukele to fail, the IMF, World Bank, US government, EU. So what happens if he succeeds?
Well, there's big questions around that, like what is success? I was talking about it with somebody this morning, discussing specifically with regards to the recent announcement of the Supreme Court saying he will be able to run for a second term. And I think what's happening there is this single term for a Bitcoin project essentially gives it another 2.5 years, and perhaps Bitcoin goes into a bear market. And I think it's 2.5 years is a too short a timescale to measure this project. So I think if you're going to measure the success of this project, I think you have to give it a full cycle, which is about 4 to 5 years from now, to see the impact, see the adoption rate, see if people have understood Bitcoin, see what's happened to the value of the Bitcoin that the government holds. I mean, they've bought 550 coins already. They're continuing to purchase. If their own bags manage to do a 10x, perhaps they have a nice pocket of Bitcoin, which allows them to clear some of their debt.
Well, what's interesting is that a lot of other countries have been watching El Salvador, other countries in Latin America, and now they're trying to come up with their own ideas, maybe stimulate some business, encourage some people to invest in El Salvador once they see that they are dabbling into digital innovation.
Well, Christine, what I would throw in there is, like, you don't want to be the last to buy Bitcoin. And essentially, as El Salvador, if you separate, thoughts on the government, because I think there are fair questions with regards to the Bukele administration, he's essentially created the micro-strategy of countries. They're the first in, and they have potentially the benefits of every other country. They benefit from every other country that comes after them. And you've got to, if you're running another government right now, you've got to be looking over the border and thinking, what is it they're up to? And there's so much excitement around the country, and there's so much investment going into the country. Tourism's picking up. Now, you've got to be looking and thinking, well, there's a number of incentives to also be considering Bitcoin. I know Panama's looking, although I think they're considering shitcoins too. But other countries are looking into this. Panama, we've heard talk of Honduras, Ecuador, Brazil, Argentina, a lot within this kind of South and Central American area of the world. So,
all looking for ways for greater access to financial markets.